We are reading Baron Trump's Marvellous Underground Journey. This is chapter 29, something concerning the many portals to the icy domain of King Geldas and the difficult task of choosing the right one. How Bulger solved it, our farewell to the cold-blooded Culticorps, Shinable's sorrow at losing us, As Bully Brain had once remarked, when there are many doors, it is a wise man who knows which is the right one to open. This I found to be the case when I attempted to make my departure from the icy domain of His Frigid Majesty, Geldas King of the Culticorps. For there was a baker's dozen of galleries, in each of which, upon exploring it, I came after a tramp of half a mile or so, up against a lofty gate of solid ice, curiously carved, and fitting the end of the gallery as a cork does a bottle. No doubt you're wondering why I didn't make my way out of the Culticorps kingdom by following the river. For a very good reason, that it went no farther than King Geldas's domain, emptying into a vast reservoir, which apparently had a subterranean outlet, for its thick covering of ice always remained at the same height. The king's quarrymen were ordered to hoe a new opening through whichever door I should point out as the one I wished to pass through, but I was informed by Frosty Fitz that, according to the law of the land, but one door could be opened during any 1 year, so that if I found my way blocked and turned back again, it would mean a delay of 12 months. Oh my goodness, time is of essence. Bullet Brain, with all his wisdom, was powerless to assist me, although I was half inclined to think that he might have done so had he been permitted to investigate the secret records of the kingdom, carved upon huge tablets of ice and stored away in the vaults of the palace. The fact of the matter is, King Geldas was so desirous of having me assist at the marriage feast of Princess Shenable that he threw every obstacle in my way that he could, without openly showing his hand. And Shenable himself, by the dancing of her clear gray eyes, gave me to understand that she too was hoping that I would make a mistake when I came to point out the door which I wanted opened. Bulger saw that I was in trouble, but couldn't comprehend clearly what that trouble was. He kept his eyes fastened upon me, however, watching my every movement, hoping, no doubt, to solve the mystery. While sitting one day lost in thought over the very serious problem which I found myself called upon to solve, an idea struck me. I had noticed that in the meat quarries the workmen often made use of sounding rods, which were long pieces of polished bone ending in flint tips. A Culticorpian quarryman, by dexterously twisting his rod, was able to bore a hole 6 feet deep or more into the solid bed of ice when desirous of ascertaining the position of a carcass in the meat quarry. And it occurred to me that by piercing the portals of the ice which close their various corridors I have spoken of, possibly Bulger's keen scent might recognize that current of air which would have in it the odor of the earth and rock. In other words, make choice for me of the portal which opened on that corridor leading away from the icy domain of King Geldas, and not merely into some outlying chamber of his kingdom. His frigid majesty could not object to such experiments, for the law only forbade the hoeing of the openings large enough for the hoer to pass through. Excuse me. King Geldas and half a dozen of his courtiers, looking stern and frigid, and conversing in freezing tones, were present to see the experiment tried. Methought their icy lips clacked together with satisfaction, when at my request one portal after another was pierced, but Bulger, after sniffing at the hole, turned away with a bewildered look in his eyes, as if he didn't half understand why I was ordering him to thrust his warm nose into such cold places. And so we tramped from corridor to corridor, until the quarrymen began to show signs of fatigue, and the surrounding rod turned slower and slower in their hands. Frosty Fitz blinked his cold gray eyes, as much to say, "Little Baron, thou must bide with us for another year." But I merely turned to the quarrymen, and I ordered them to pierce one more portal of ice ere we abandoned the task for the day. They went at the work of piercing the 11th door with the pace of a pack of mules up a mountainside. But at last the sounding rod bored a way through, and at a wave of my hand the quarrymen fell back. In an instant Bulger had his nose at the hole, and took 3 or 4 quick nervous sniffs, ending with a long, deep-drawn one, and then breaking out into a string of sharp, jerky, joyful barks. He began scratching furiously at the bottom of the portal. "Your frigid majesty," I said, with a low, stately bend of my body, such as only those born to the manor can make, "by this portal, at the coming of tomorrow's sun, I shall pass from your majesty's icy dominion." And when Frosty Fitz and Glacier Bohoy heard these words of mine uttered so loftily, their eyes gleamed cold as steel, and they followed the king in silence back to the palace of ice. Shenable met them in the grand hallway, and when she had looked upon their faces, she began to weep, for she loved me, and she loved Bulger too, and her cold little heart could not bear the thought of our going. King Geldas, however, soon recovered his spirits and ordered a feast with song and dance in honor of Bulger, who during the festivities sat on the highest divan with the softest pelt beneath him, and so many were the frozen tidbits which Culticorpse presented to him during the progress of the feast that I grew alarmed, lest he might overload his stomach and not be in a fit. Okay, so this is the picture. This is a picture of the Culticorpse, I guess, is it? And Baron and Bulger, and they're trying to hack at the ice and find out, go on through. Look at these outfits they're wearing. They look like monks. They do have a round symbol on them there. Culticorpian quarrymen hoeing a passage through the wall of ice. Okay, the picture, we're going to the next page. It's page 205, A Marvellous Underground Journey. Okay, so conditioned to make the early start on our journey, of which I had given notice to the Culticorpian monarch. But his good sense saved him from doing so foolish a thing. In fact, I was greatly amused to see that while he accepted every tidbit handed to him, and solemnly went through the motions of chewing it. Yet, watching his chance, he slyly dropped it out of his mouth and flirted it away with his paw. Thus was spent our last night at the icy court of his frigid majesty, and on the morrow Qualty-Quirps collected in great crowds on the different terraces to say goodbye. I pressed a kiss on the cheek of Princess Shenabul, and when it had turned to icy crystals, one of her men brushed it into an alabaster box. Princess Chili Chops, the former lamp trimmer, was on hand with the rest of the Qualty-Quirpian nobles, but I flattered myself that Shenabul loved me better than she did him. However, I wished him joy and gripped his cold palm with such warmth that he stood blowing it for a whole minute. When we reached the lofty portal, we found that the quarrymen had already hewn a passage through it, and nearby I observed a pile of massive blocks of ice, crystal clear. These, when Bulger I should pass through the opening, were to be used in walling it up again. And when I saw this pile of blocks and remembered the solid workmanship of the Qualty-Quirpian quarrymen, the thought flitted through my mind. Suppose Bulger hath not chosen wisely? What use would there be in turning back? For my own weak hands would be powerless against a wall built of such blocks, and knock I ever so loud, how could the sound ever traverse this long and winding corridor and reach the ear of a Qualty-Quirp? No, I said to myself, if Bulger hath not chosen wisely, it will be a goodbye to both upper and underworlds. And then, bearing an alabaster lamp in one hand and in the other holding the cord, which I had tied to Bulger's collar, I stepped through the narrow passage hewn by the quarrymen and turned my back forever on the cold dominion of Geldus, king of Qualty-Quirps. Once I halted and looked back. I could see nothing, but I could hear the sharp click of the flint axes as the quarrymen closed up the door that shut me out from so many cold but loving hearts. And then I drew a long breath and went on my way again. And that was the last I ever saw of the Qualty-Quirps, save in daydream or night vision. Okay, well, thank you so much. We shall read the next chapter next time. And look, there's a picture. He must be going through the portal or the door. What does it say at the bottom? Is this for the next chapter? It says the wonderful ride on the block of ice. I'm wondering, did we read about him riding down on a block of ice in another chapter? Okay, well, guys, I'm gonna have to, let's see. I'm pretty sure this is the end of it. Yeah. Okay, so we'll be reading chapter 30 next. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Until we meet again. Have a great day. Bye.